Okay, so we're looking at Further Mechanics 2, Chapter 2, which is centres of mass, and we only look at 2D kinds of things here, because Chapter 3, actually, which is an A2 module, or an A2 chapter, looks at centres of mass, and it does some things to do with calculus, and it does some stuff to do with 3D, so it's kind of like a two-chapter concept that we've got here. Now, this diagram is to kind of help us think about what the centre of mass of a body actually is. And when I say body, I don't necessarily mean a human body, I just mean a thing that's got some mass. So the centre of mass of a body is where we consider its weight to be acting through. And this is kind of indicated by these little dots that we've got here. It can help us find the balancing point of various objects. So you can see here the centre of mass is coming straight down from this person. But in this second kind of diagram, this is when you, I don't know, you've probably all done this at school, when you sort of lean your chair back. And actually, if this person leant back any further, their centre of mass would be beyond that leg of the chair, and they would fall backwards if they couldn't somehow rebalance themselves. But really, they would probably fall if they leant back any further from this point that we've got here. We need to define a few important words before we begin. And first of all, we've probably come across this when you've been doing mechanics at some other point. A particle. A particle is a mass with no dimension, and all of its mass acts at one single point. And if you have done moments in mechanics from normal A level, we've looked at some particles, or some bodies I should say, which have one dimension. These are like rods or beams or wires, and that's kind of indicated by this thing that we've got here. And we know that most of the time we would say that its mass acts at the centre. We'd call it the centre of mass, and that's if it's a uniform beam that we've got there. And you can probably think of that as like the ladder kinds of questions if you've looked at those ones before. We also need a new word. This is probably the one that people won't have come across before, is a mass with two dimensions, like this kind of two-dimensional rectangle that we've got here. It could be like a metal sheet, it could be a piece of paper, it could be a piece of card. It is something that has only got two dimensions. Of course, in real life, things do have three dimensions, but we're saying that that third dimension, how thick that piece of paper is sort of negligible compared to the other two. Now, the plural of lamina, we can either say laminas or you can say laminae, a bit like the plural of formula is formulae. And then last of all, mass with any dimensions is a body. So if we say a body, it could be any of these kinds of things, but we will in chapter 3 look at some stuff to do with 3D stuff. Now, this looks like a pretty hefty chapter because we've got so many exercises, but really they all kind of like build on just one single concept. So sort of the first 5 exercises that we've got here are literally just one concept repeated in lots and lots of different ways. And then we've got a couple of things where we sort of put them in force kind of situations where we think what would happen to them with forces. And that's pretty much this chapter. Now, this is kind of why I like mechanics so much, is because Further Mechanics 1 and Further Mechanics 2 have got very few concepts that they just explore in lots and lots and lots of different ways. So once you get the concept of this, it will take you right through all of chapter 2 and all of chapter 3, and it's just one concept. So I really like this one. I think this one is a great module. So let's talk a little bit more about centres of mass, because we only had a very sort of slight definition of it right here. So I've written that in reality, each atom of a body has its own weight acting on it. And considering all of these is important when studying how objects rotate. But we won't be looking at this in Further Mechanics 2. We won't be really looking at like the rotation of objects. We will be at the very end of chapter 3 deciding if they will rotate or not. But we won't actually be doing the study of their rotations. So instead, what we do in Further Mechanics 2 is what we try and do is we find out where their collective weight acts. So we're not going to be looking at each atom, but we're just saying collectively, where is this weight of all of these atoms going to be acting? And we're going to say it as it's acting at a single point. So in other words, we're going to try and take some of these things here, and we're going to try and pretend that they are a particle. Even though they've got dimensions, we're going to say that all of their mass is acting at one particular point. And then what we do is we use this to solve problems about how they would rest in equilibrium that we've got here. Now, I've said that centres of mass can help us when designing various things. It allows us to assess their stability in certain situations, which has obvious implications for safety. And what I mean by that is, just consider the dangers of an imbalanced aeroplane, for example. You can imagine, if a plane was taking off and all of the luggage and people were poorly distributed, it could be really quite serious consequences that we have there. Now, I've put a couple of toys up because these are maybe where hopefully you've come across some of these things in your, either your childhood or maybe buying something for a little brother or sister. This kind of bird balancing toy that we've got here is where you place your finger underneath the bird and it kind of feels like it should just fall off. But because of the shape of these, the wings that we've got here that kind of curve around, its actual centre of mass is at the point where the bird's beak is. So as long as you put your finger under the beak, or if you place the bird on like an edge or something where its beak could rest, it stays perfectly balanced. So look out if you ever see one of these. And these are kind of toppling toys, or toys that are always sometimes called like self-righting toys. And I obviously picked these because I'm a big fan of Spirited Away. I love that film, so I found these and thought this is a great demonstration of these self-righting toys. Now, this CG that we've got here is the center of gravity, and we can see that if the toy was sort of tilted in one direction, that center of gravity is still in that same kind of position, and it wants to move it so that it kind of self-rights. And it's to do with this curve that's on the bottom part that's here. And you can see that there's a little gap there, which means that that toy is going to want to keep going up to its self-righting position. It's going to want to keep going upright. Hopefully, these images and this bit here is kind of giving you a reminder of maybe one of those toys that you've seen when you've been growing up or something. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dive straight in with, how do we find the center of mass? And you'll see me using COM for center of mass in lots of different places here. So to find where the center of mass lies for a set of particles on a line, we use the following idea. And this is literally the idea that's going to take you all the way through chapter 2 and chapter 3. The sum of the moments of particles' weight is equal to the moment of the total weight at the center of mass. Now, this kind of concept, you'll sort of understand it a bit more with an example, but we're basically saying that if you take the moments of each of the individual particles, that should be the same as the total weight of all of the particles at the center of mass. Now, if you haven't come across a moment before, a moment when we've come across it previously is just a force multiplied by a distance, and they're perpendicular to each other if you haven't studied moments yet. But generally a moment is when you're doing something, two things multiplied, where it's like a distance and something else. Now when we do these calculations, I've said that it's weight up here, but actually when we do them, we're probably never going to do them with weight. We're probably instead just going to be doing it with mass instead, because in all of the calculations, there would be the G component of everything to do with the weight, so they would cancel out across all of these things that we've got here. So we can ignore G in the weight components and just look at the masses, as this will appear in all the calculations. So let's just quickly think about how you find a moment. A moment is a mass or a force, which in this case is going to be m, multiplied by a distance, which is going to be x that we've got here. So this is why I've got m and x being multiplied together at this point. I've ignored g, so that it would have been mg for weight, but it's just m. And this sigma here is just saying we're going to add all of them up, starting from the first one and finishing at the last one that we've got there. So basically, multiply the mass and the distances for all of the different particles. And what that should be equal to is the moment of the total weight at the center of mass. So I'm going to find the total mass by adding up all of the masses. Sigma means add up all of these things that we've got here, and we would multiply it by the distance of the center of mass. Now x bar represents the x coordinate of the center of mass. And I'm trying to, if I had a student right in front of me, I would ask them this question and see what they'd say. Where have we seen this bar notation before? What does that make us think of? Well, I'm hoping that student would probably say, oh, we've seen it in statistics. We've seen it for like an average value of something. And that's kind of what we're thinking about here. We're saying, like, where is the average sort of central point for those weights or those masses? So let's just try it with this question that we've got here. It says that a system of 3 particles with masses 2 kilograms, 5 kilograms, and 3 kilograms are placed along the x-axis at the points 3, 0, 4, 0, and 6, 0, respectively. Find the center of mass of the system. So we've got a 2 kilogram, which is at 3, 0. I'll just do that with a little small dot. So that's going to be my 2 kilograms. We've got a 5 kilograms at 4, 0. So I'm going to do that one with a bigger dot. I'll do it like this. So there's my 5 kilograms. And then we've got a 3 kilograms at 6, 0. So I'll sort of do that as kind of like an in-between that we've got here. Now, in order to do the calculation for this, all I'm going to do is the mass multiplied by the distance, the mass multiplied by the distance, the mass multiplied by the distance, and we'll try and see where that average one is going to be. Now, I imagine the average one is going to be somewhere in this middle section, so let's just see what happens. So I'm going to start off by doing my 2 multiplied by 3. I'm then going to do the 5 kilograms multiplied by the 4 distance and the 3 kilograms multiplied by the 6 distance. That's everything that's on the left-hand side of this part that we've got here. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to have the x bar, which is the average part, multiplied by the total of the masses. Now, the total of the masses, 2 plus 5 plus 3, is obviously just 10. So it's equal to 10 x bar that we've got here. So that is a 6 plus 20 plus 18. So 6 plus 20, that's 26, plus 18, That is 36, 44, 44 equals 10 x bar that we've got here, which means that x bar is equal to 4.4 that we've got this part. So the center of mass is going to be at 4.40. And I tell you what, I'm just going to mark that on here as 4.4. So the center of mass is actually acting at this particular point. So instead of having it as 3 particles, we could pretend that it was one single particle of 10 kilograms that was at 4.4 for that one that we've got there. Now, of course, we could ask questions where we do have some other unknowns. So let's see if we can try this one that we've got here. We've got 3 particles, P, Q, and R, are placed along the x-axis. P has a mass 3.5 and is at the point 1, 0. So I'm immediately going to do my 3.5, and that's going to be multiplied by the 1 of this part that's here. Q has a mass of M1 that we've got, and that is going to be at the point -2, 0. Tell you what, maybe a little diagram could be helpful. So I'm going to say we've got the 0 is here. So there's a 3.5 that's at this point. So there's P. We've got Q, which is over here at -2. So that's going to now get multiplied by -2. And then we've got R is at 3, 0. So R is over here, and that's at 3, 0. So R is going to have a mass of M2, and that's being multiplied by 3. So it's okay to have something with a negative. We're just going to be multiplying it by a negative instead, because that's going to just kind of balance everything out in the right kind of way that we're looking for. So you will want to say if they're positives or negatives. And this is going to be equal to the total mass of the 3 particles, which is 10 kilograms, they've told us, multiplied by the, I haven't even finished the question. The center of mass of the 3 particles is at 0.30, and the total mass is 10 kilograms. So that's going to be equal to the total mass, which is 10, multiplied by that distance, which is 0.3. So we now have got 3.5 minus 2m1 plus 3m2 is equal to 3. Okay, so we need to do a little bit of rearranging with this. We've got minus 2m1 plus 3m2 is equal, therefore, to minus 0.5 if I do the 3 minus 3.5. So I might want to just negate everything, so I get 2m1 minus 3m2 is equal to 0.5. Now, we need to be able to find out what m1 and m2 is. So there is one other fact that we haven't fully used yet, which is that the total mass of the 3 particles is 10 kilograms. So I know that m1 plus m2 plus the first one, which was p, is 3.5, is equal to 10, which means that m1 plus m2 is equal to 6.5. So all I really need to do is just solve this simultaneously. I might just make m1 the subject, so m1 is 6.5 minus m2. Of course, you could just put this in your calculator if you wanted to. So that's 2 lots of 6.5 minus m2 minus 3m2 equals 0.5. I'll expand those brackets. So that is minus 5m2 equals 0.5 minus 13, that's minus 12.5. So that means m2 is minus 12.5 divided by 5, which is 2.5, which means that m1 from this is 6.5 minus 2.5, which is 4. So the 2 masses that we've got are 2.5 kilograms and 4 kilograms, like this. It's basically just a bit of simultaneous equations. This whole process we did here, if you wanted to, you could just do that straight away on your calculator. So that's pretty much the beginning of these concepts we've got here. Go and have a go at exercise 2A, and in the next one, we're going to not just do them on a line, we're going to try and extend that idea to them acting on a plane.